speakers who are on that home stretch. Laura's going to speak to us about her master's thesis research, which she has been working on for the last year and a half, maybe even longer. The title of her talk is Sharing and Innovation. And with that,
hi everyone. I started researching shared workspaces because I went to a conference and it talked a lot about shared workspaces as a way for cities and universities and institutions to combat structural problems and support innovation. And the audience was asking for more specific details on shared workspaces, and I just noticed that there was a big gap in knowledge. There was more like buzzwords and like general recommendations, but there wasn't really like rich understanding, or in that moment there wasn't clear communication about what happens inside of them, and so I figured I'll go fill that knowledge gap. So I did a lot of preliminary field work. I went to 40 shared workspaces between January and July, and to me that includes like maker spaces, hacker spaces, co-located research facilities like this, co-working, incubators, accelerators, arts and manufacturing studios. And so people, would ask, why are you looking at all these different things when, you should just look at just one or the other? But I just have this feeling inside that this is a coherent system, and it just hasn't been conceptualized that way yet. So I kept following, that punch that sometimes drives pieces of research. And so at each of the 40 places, I took a walking tour, because that's a regular practice in shared workspaces. And I had informal conversations with owners and staff, and at a couple places, I did a sit-down, formal, semi-structured interviews, recorded, transcribed. Now, there are fuzzy labels for these places. Similar spaces will have different labels. Also, if you go into a space like this could be broken up into multiple zones. There would be a co-working space here. Back there would be co-located research technology, further some research technology here. So just using labels to categorize these spaces is not enough. And so as an STS person, I'm like, let's go look at the technology. So there are 3 unifying trends that do pull together this seemingly disparate group of places, and they're all sites of autonomous work and play, and that includes self-employed users, employed users, and play users. So especially, you can be an autonomous worker there as having employment, but you're just, a remote worker, or you're a hot desker. There's different terms for it. Another unifying trend is that people link into the spaces to access shared space, technology, community, and knowledge. And each person may not want all 4 of these things, but they want at least one of the things, and then maybe they want some of the other things as time goes. And labor serendipitously self-organizes in these spaces as well. Sometimes it's intentional, and sometimes it's serendipitous. So that's like the bird's eye, the 1,000-foot view of what the system of shared workspaces are. I like to think of it as a city, like Philly has its own city of shared workspaces. This is what pulls them together. Now we're going to go inside of one particular shared workspace that I went into, and STS, we like to look at how society and the production of scientific knowledge or technology interact with each other. I'm a technology person, so I went into a space that is outfitted and designed to support innovation through contract fabrication and design and sharing technical knowledge. And we're going to look at number 2. So, we'll forget 1 and 3 and look especially at number 2. And so my argument right now deals with the dynamics of these 4 characteristics that unify the spaces. So if we look at the shared space, different characteristics of the shared space and the shared technologies there, we can start to have an idea of what kind of community will emerge there. Also, some shared workspaces have the space before the community, other ones have a community before the space, but whether you're space first or community first, community will continue to emerge organically inside of that. So it is useful to be able to see how the material environment is going to influence that. And then if we look at the shared technologies and the organizational structure of this space itself, we can start to locate knowledge flows that do support innovation. By innovation, I do not mean invention. So invention is more of what would happen in the university, where you create something totally novel and new. It's not really building off of other knowledge. So we're looking at technological innovation, which is It's a newly patented technology or technologies, and it does build off of previous inventions or innovations. And product innovations are just new products that go to market, because not every technological innovation makes it to market or is successful. So again, if we look at the space and the technologies, we see the community. If we look at the technologies and the organizational structure, in the case of innovation in a makerspace, we'll start to see how knowledge flows in that space. So I call this space Fab Share because there's a whole Fab Lab movement. It was started by an MIT professor back in 2002, and that's just where he had a class exposing students to all these industrial technologies and noticed that people wanted to play with them and not just do research and products. And so he started to set up Fab Labs outside of America, and it's a huge global movement, and that intersects with the makerspace movement as well. So I did 43 hours of participant observation at FabShare. That includes day-to-day operations, and I went to some social programming and Skillshare programming as well. And I did formal interviews with 11 members and staff for a total of 7 hours. And the people I interviewed break out into play users, consultants, small business, independent innovator, startup, and staff. And the numbers are just how many I interviewed of each category. So we're talking about interdisciplinary research. I used 2 disciplines to understand what was happening in this space, because this is a new phenomenon that hasn't really been studied, especially from a big systems level. It hasn't been studied, so there's a need to see what other domains of knowledge can contribute to understanding this space. So in the philosophy of technology, Langdon Winter talks about the political nature of technologies. Some technologies are democratized, some are authoritative. And Davis Baird, he writes a materialist epistemology, he calls it thing knowledge, and that basically says that technologies themselves, like this technology itself, it has knowledge inside of it that is different than written knowledge. It's different than knowledge I can speak, and it's different knowledge than I can understand as a human. But when I look at it, or interact with it, I can see the knowledge that's inside of it, and it tells me how this object's material, like raw materials, interact with natural forces to perform a task. So those are the 2 pieces of philosophy of technology that help us understand. In economic geography, their primary motive is to figure out what conditions promote the flow of tacit technical knowledge within and between organizations to promote proximity. Tacit knowledge is knowledge in doing. It's something you need to perform a task. It's not written knowledge. It's not verbally spoken knowledge. It's knowledge that it's an active thing. And so they use dimensions of proximity to figure out how it flows. That includes geographic proximity, organizational proximity. So that means being close spatially and being in a shared organization will help us share knowledge with each other. All right, so the shared space in FabShare. They have open shared space, enclosed shared space, and enclosed private space. Now, a lot of people in shared workspaces, they think everything should be open, everything should be shared. But if we want to think about what kind of community will realistically emerge there, and we want to support especially high-tech innovation, we have to think about privacy issues, storage, and work preferences. So not everyone wants to be in an open space. Also, all of the high-tech people in FabShare, they had enclosed offices, and they had their own stuff that they need to leave there, and they wouldn't want to bring it there and take it back every day. And in economic geography, they have some concepts that talk about the importance of shared spaces for the production and sharing of knowledge to support innovation. They use the word ba, and they also think that shared spaces like this right here we're in, they help facilitate face-to-face interactions, serendipitous encounters. And so basically the shared space, it creates geographic proximity and it helps knowledge flow. So shared technology. At FabShare, they have shared office technology and shared technologies in fabrication and design. But if we look at the technologies, we see that the ones in FabShare enable constant professional grade work, whereas many other makerspaces, they have smaller scale things, or for example, a flow machine that can make a 2-dimensional object but not a 3-dimensional object. And so if you have professional grade technologies there that can do professional grade prototyping and manufacturing, then you're going to attract professional grade innovators, experienced hardware innovators, people that are already experienced in innovating and not just starting fresh. So the concept of democratized technologies let us see that, yes, in a makerspace or shared space, these are democratized technologies because anyone can join and use these, and they can use the technologies for whatever they want. And as opposed to in the past, where these same exact technologies, well, not in the past, in the present as well. In the past and in the present, these technologies are behind the closed doors of industry and government, performing repetitive industrial tasks decided by, decided by management structure. So, and then thing knowledge helps us when we're looking at the technologies, we're also seeing the thing knowledge that is there, and so we can see that there's all these different opportunities for people to learn and interact with these things. So the fact that there's technologies there and they're democratically open, there's opportunities for learning as well. So that's going to pull in people that want to learn these technologies. And economic geography doesn't actually talk about technologies themselves, even though they only consider themselves with technological innovation. So that's a big hole in that discipline. So the emergent community, there's work, there's play, and then there's people that are kind of both. And so there's high technology people that I think if you're trying to support innovation, that's a top priority to try and pull these people in. These were just the forms of high technology that were there. And then there's other things like artisan craftsmen, professional artists, manufacturers that want to integrate new technologies into their business, things of that nature. And then people there for hobby reasons. And then independent innovators are those that are not employed as an innovator, but they want to, they want to innovate and sell their, their creation. So there's a lot of people like that that are attracted to these spaces because they can learn and they can have support making. So let's keep the technologies in mind, and then now we look at the organizational structure. So that organizational structure helps engender what economic geographers call organizational proximity, and that just means that you have a shared set of beliefs and implicit and explicit rules of behavior that govern interactions. So the explicit rules and routines in FabShare, number one is individual initiatives rule, both for staff and members. So when people come in, they decide how they want to organize their day and perform tasks. They're not there following a set not a set steps of moves. If that makes sense. Technical staff responsibilities. They have to teach classes. They have to negotiate and perform contract work, and the stop, drop, and help policy, which is if any member needs help, then the staff has to stop what they're doing and go help that person. And then the members have to do orientation and safety, and then if they need help with a machine, they need to ask for help. And then there are organizational platforms that help bring people together. So there's social programming like happy hours and parties. And then there's also events that are member-to-member skill sharing. Implicit rules and routines, it's just a culture of openness and sharing. Members are allowed to contract work out to other members, and that's one of the serendipitous pieces of labor. People are curious and helpful. People put off signals, say, leave me alone, I'm working, or it's okay, I'm working, but we can talk, or I'm just in a social mode right now. And just doing technological work in an open environment, that in and of itself will be a catalyst for social interaction in the moment or later. So you can walk by and see like, oh, I see you're doing that. You can start asking them about it. Or later, at a happy hour or something, you can say, what are you working on? I saw you doing this. So whereas in co-working spaces, that's not really the case as much because you can't visually see, you don't have visual cues as to what everyone is there doing. So, all right, so now we can see how knowledge is flowing. The organizational structure puts a lot of things there that helps knowledge to flow. So what the organizational structure puts in authoritarian knowledge flows, and that is the technology classes, the stop, drop, and help, contract work. The DFM is designed for manufacturability knowledge, and so the staff are instructed to, when they get a contract job in, they have to look over it and, know, like with their knowledge base about how to manufacture things, they go over the design and send it back and say, you can make your design better and cheaper and stronger this way and that way. So these are examples of authoritarian knowledge flows. And then democratized knowledge flows are self-directed action, serendipitous encounters, and collaborative development of contract work. So, you can take individual initiative and go ask, like, hey, I need help. But people report being more comfortable having, they'll they'll approach someone if they have a social tie with them. That's why these social events and other organizational events to bring people together and to become friends are important, because knowledge will flow more freely between people that have social ties. But the technology is also a catalyst. It's like if I see you working in the electronics lab every day, I will, if I need help, maybe I'll go ask you, because I can see that you have that knowledge. Serendipitous encounters are just like if you're working on something, someone could stop by and say, oh, what are you working on? Why don't you try it like that? So you get this knowledge without asking for it. And again, the social ties help more people. People are going to approach people they know more frequently. And then if you see something that's interesting, that'll also pull the serendipitous encounter. And then collaborative development of contract work. So you can just send in your contract work to the staff, or especially if you're a member, you can have conversations about, here's the goal I'm trying to achieve. Here's why I think this approach is good. But if you're having these, these iterative back and forth conversations, you can really you can co-construct how to approach this this problem through technical means. And so, why is this important? Especially in the case of FabShare, their infrastructure, their technology, and their organizational structure makes innovation inclusive in a way that has never been before. And so there are people there who are doing startups, they're doing high technology startups, and they don't have any technical background, but they're there because they have all of these resources of shared knowledge, and they take advantage of all of them. This is important because it makes innovation more efficient. It accelerates prototyping because you have all this access to knowledge in many different ways. And you can divide your labor, and it actually changes the material output of innovation. And so that's something you can't really measure. You can't say, if you were to do this in in an isolated environment, how would the output be different? But if everyone that I asked that were hardware, prototyping hardware there, they said, oh my God, yes, the knowledge and the skills of people here are entirely in here. Here's an example of how to change this and that. So, there is, people say that makerspaces and, like DIY 3D printers and the more widespread dissemination of these technologies are democratizing production, and that is true. But if we're looking at it from this perspective to see what kind of community is there and knowledge is there, then we can start to see that it's useful to have authoritative knowledge flows inside of shared spaces of innovation, because you do have to have the social ties or have particular social skills in order to access knowledge in a democratic fashion. So some things are democratized, but sometimes it's useful to have these rigid structures in place to make sure that knowledge is accessible for everyone. And what's needed in these spaces, there needs to be improved accessibility of other forms of knowledge that help innovation, because you can make a great technological object, but if you don't know how to do market research or marketing or sales or branding, then it's going to be very difficult to actually move that from a technological innovation to product innovation. And that's where we get back to this citywide system of shared workspaces. Just because you're in a FabShare doesn't mean that there are not places where this other type of knowledge is freely flowing. Sometimes it's authoritative, sometimes it's democratic. And so if we were to create if we were to create an understanding of a citywide system of this shared community and shared knowledge, then we could help citywide organization of labor and to help promote innovation from a citywide level from this new form of space sharing that has been emerging since recently. Sorry. All right, so that's it.
Yep. So questions from the audience for either speaker?
Sure.